fail as many times as you need to in order to get to where you want to be. Because if it was that easy to get to that place you wanted to be, everybody would do it. Everybody would do it. Everybody would win. And not everybody can win. Only the ones that truly want it, the ones that are truly hungry and willing to put in the work and the grind, they're the ones that are going to succeed. So fail, 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 and fail. And eventually you'll get the win.
Welcome to Fatherhood Voices, breaking the toxic cycle. Dive in as real dads bear all, the mess-ups, make-ups, and every heartfelt moment in between. It's raw, it's real, and it might just change the way you see family.
Welcome to another edition of Fatherhood Voices. So here today is my sidekick, who's back, and you are?
Alyssa, Rodarte.
Alyssa, my oldest daughter. So a little change in plans today because I felt ill over the last couple of days. So we had to do some rearranging of the podcast and going to save our guests for later this week. And then we'll kind of switch things up. But I'm glad to have you here because I wanted to bring up some topics that showed up in my DM in the last couple of days. So you ready for this?
Let's get into it.
Awesome. And I think it's only befitting, if that's a word, with Mother's Day coming up this weekend and then Father's Day coming up right after. Let me tell you what happened. First, I got a DM, and actually it was 3 DMs that started talking about just the role of fathers, how they play, and how a lot of, not only fathers, but just parents in general, how they've gotten very soft with their children. And, there's all these there's helicopter parenting and Disneyland, dad and so forth. So the one thing that showed up was, I didn't even know this was a name, but it's called the trad dad. Okay. And when they said the trad dad, I had to do some research because 2 people had mentioned that. And what the trad dad, well, let me ask you a question. Do you know what trad dad means?
Like the traditional dad? Is that what you mean?
It's a traditional dad. I didn't know that that's what a trad dad was. It's a father who rules with a firm hand. It's a traditional dad that never negotiated and always had a reason for everything, even if it was just because I said so. But
Sounds
what does
familiar.
that mean today? Well, and we're going to dive into that because although I like to, as I started to explore, like, what is a trad dad? I think mine was a combination of trad dad and something a little bit more to the extreme, but this is where we're going to get your perspective, So when people say, what's a trad dad? He's a dad that believed in authority, discipline, and structure. Okay. And he wasn't your buddy, but he was your parent. Like, we're not friends. I'm your parent. And a trad dad would set the rules and enforce them. And the trad dad would expect you to follow. Not ask their children like, oh, what do you want to eat? It's, we're going to eat at home and you're going to like it. It's a trad dad that would say, it's time to go to sleep. And when the child would say, no, can I stay up a little longer? It's like, no, lights are out. You're going to sleep. And I wanted to dive into this topic because I know when I was being raised, even though my dad wasn't as present as I would have liked him to, I want to say that in some ways he followed a very traditional role, but a traditional role from a discipline aspect. I was raised that when he said, you're going to pick up the leaves, you're going to pick up the leaves. And so he ruled out of fear. And I remember us having a conversation, I think it was the last episode, where you said, or maybe it wasn't even on camera, but you seem to be a little bit demanding sometimes with your partner.
Demanding?
And,
what?
Well, demanding because when you want something done, you want something done immediately. And I think something that you said, because, you've had that pattern in the past. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing because you want things done instantaneously, but I also think that a lot of that was because of your upbringing. It's something that I learned from my father. It was when things needed to get done, they needed to get done in that moment. And so the way I raised the girls was when I wanted it done, I wanted it done now, my way, no questions asked. And I think that kind of rubbed off on you and that's shown up. in your relationships, in your friendships, you know? So just give me
Uh-huh.
some perspective.
No. Well, not that's not something in friendships. In relationship, yes, sometimes I do ask for things to be done, but I don't consider myself demanding,
You don't consider yourself demanding?
not for the most part.
Can we get your partner on and ask him?
No, he's busy right now, that's okay. We don't need to talk to him right now.
Okay. Okay. So, the trad dad, the traditional dad, ruled with authority. And the old saying is he ruled with an iron fist. And I started, as I started researching, the traditional dad and started thinking about how I showed how I showed up and how I, raised you girls, but you in particular because you're here and your sisters aren't here to speak for themselves. So, um, I don't know, what were your thoughts on your upbringing? Because, I think we're reaching a point in this generation where parents have gone too lax. And because of that, this new generation of youth has just gone off the rails. And you know what? Before we forget, let me let me throw some statistics in there. I read that 10% of college students now say that they get PTSD from going to college. What the fuck? From going to college, 10% of students get PTSD from going, say they got it from college.
Okay, I can see that.
Really?
PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, but what a lot of people think that PTSD means is the far extreme that you normally hear what you got PTSD from. But I can see when you're in a high stress environment where there's a lot of demands for exams and grades, and if you have to do extracurricular activities and all that stuff. So I think that's the generational gap between me and you of, I went to college, I got a psychology degree. I'm continuously educating myself with different things surrounding child development and psychology. So yes, I can see where that comes from, but what you're thinking that PTSD is, the form that you're thinking of is the more commonly spoken about form, which is the extreme end.
Well, another statistic said that, well, let's talk about, as we dive into this whole thing, we're going to dive into participation trophies. So we're definitely going to have a conversation about that. But
Mm,
going back to the trad dad, and someone ruling with authority, where do you think I fell into the what's the word I'm looking for? Where did I fall in between the categories as you were growing up? How did I show up for you? I'm curious. I don't think we've ever had this conversation about how I showed up in my role as a father. I mean, I know there's all the negative things, but how did I show up? Now that we're on this new journey of healing, um, was I a trad dad or was I an asshole or was I both?
both, probably, you'd qualify as both, but, that's a bit to break down. So, um, I can only speak for me personally because I grew up with the dad that I had. And at that point, you were pretty much like a trad dad. So you were a traditional father. But then there were some untraditional things where I feel like it was taken a step further of like where a dad would say, we're going to do this and it's my way. But then I felt like you were stricter sometimes with some of those things. Um, I can say that some of the ways that you showed up for me is you were there when situations happened at school, for example. When I didn't get the grade that I should have gotten in PE because I had asthma. And, you showed up and you took it to the school board and you appealed that. And I did feel like that was something that was directed at me because there had been signs before and there had been some things going on there. And um, for that situation, it was that my asthma wasn't being acknowledged. And I was basically failing that class because I couldn't physically perform. So things like that, or when I was campaigning to be student body president, you helped me out with that and going to meetings with the principal and stuff like that. So I knew that I could always come to you if something happened in school. I knew if I go to dad, he's going to handle it. He's going to take care of it. He's going to be there to defend me. And if there's something going on that's not right, he's going to shut it down. Um, that was the biggest and probably most impactful thing is I knew that I could count on you, that if, something was happening in school or with somebody in that setting, that you would be there.
And I think we've talked about this a little bit, but it's very important for you as a parent to show up for your kids, especially when you feel um, in your heart, in your principles, that something's wrong. And you bring up that example of the PE teacher that wanted to fail you because you couldn't do the mile in X amount of minutes. And she was so focused on the letter of the law as opposed to the spirit of the law, not taking into account your asthma. And I remember she just held that fine line. And I remember going to um, the counselor, the assistant principal, the school board. It went to the teachers union. It became a big thing, but we finally got it addressed. But we weren't going to back down because it was wrong. I understand that there was and I remember even contacting the head person of the state of California that wrote the curriculum on physical education.
Oh, wow.
And them even, I don't know if you remember that, but them even sending um, a letter expressing how this was just a guide, but it was up to the interpretation to take into the account these students and physical conditions and so forth. And no, she would not budge. And the teachers union backed it. And yeah, it was a fight, but in the end, we did prevail. But I think about how many other mothers or fathers don't go all the way. They just cave because of the pressure or because they get enough pushback that they just shut down. And I think that's a definitely, when I think of a traditional dad, I think that's a perfect example of a traditional dad that fought the system all the way through to, turn a wrong into a right.
No, I think that that's extremely important, especially when it comes to schools, whether they're in private or public schools. You should be there to back your child. If something is not right, even in terms of bullying, because that's been something that we've also addressed over the years, bullying, or if it's something like a teacher, it's important that your kids know that you have their back and that you're willing to stand up for them, no matter what that means. If that means talking to the teacher, if that means going all the way up to the school board about something that's not right. And the other thing I mentioned about when I ran for student body president, that's a little bit of the lighter side, support your child. I mean, I remember I was running and I was trying to make this graduation because our middle school didn't have any type of like graduation type of thing that all of the rest of the schools basically in our district had. And you were there supporting me to figure out how we can make that work. And that being on the other end of a positive thing. I knew that there was support there. I didn't know how to do this. And you basically taught me how I can go have these conversations, basically how I can use my voice and what are the steps to go do something positive to make an impact.
So I know this trad dad movement, I definitely ruled with an iron fist. But what were some of the negative experiences that, if you could go back in time, you would have wanted things handled differently?
Okay. Well, one of the things that we talked about in the last podcast was I was limited in what I could do. Like I said, I didn't get to go to any parties or anything or really get to hang out. It was very limited.
Can you get over that
It's
already?
okay.
Can
It's
you move
fine.
on to a
It's
different
jokes about like
topic?
I went to a couple things. Okay. Anyway, you said negative, but it's fine. I'm over that. Um, I knew that I can come to you for school related stuff if something was wrong. But when I had the other struggles of like emotional struggles or depression struggles, that didn't really cross my mind to come to you because you more set, that it was more of the precedent of dad provides the household, the food, the clothes, everything, but dad's not really available for emotional support. That was more, I went to my mom because there wasn't a space established. There were no conversations. I think, like we mentioned before, I wasn't allowed to cry for such a long time, because crying showed weakness. So I felt that if I came to you with these other things that I was dealing with as a teenager, that you weren't going to understand or that you were just going to tell me. And you very well might have, basically to get over it or put a motivational video in front of me or simplify the emotions that I was going through. So I would say that's one of the biggest negative impacts with parenting in such a traditional way, that it doesn't leave space for open conversations as much as you think it does.
And you bring up a great point because as much as I feel that a lot of the traditional parenting should come back, I also think that there should be some balance with an emotional parent also. An emotional parent from a perspective of allowing them a safe space emotionally to be able to share. I know during the time that you were growing up, no, if you would have come to me and said like I was struggling or I need therapy or something, I'd shut that down in a heartbeat because I didn't believe in therapy. To me, it was weakness. And I remember that's a fight that happened many a times when your mom wanted to put you guys in therapy or go see a school counselor. And I refused. I refused because in my mind, I'm raising strong, independent women or little girls to become women. And I don't need anybody else guiding them on the emotional piece when they're going to be these strong, kick-ass, girls. So that I definitely can see where I lacked a lot of empathy, and yeah, just I didn't create that container for you girls, and that's a regret that I do think about a lot because from that there were a lot of challenges that you guys faced as you guys were going through your elementary, junior high school, and high school years. Because although you knew that when it came to push came to shove, when it came to bullying or issues at school, but when it came to outside entities, I was there. But when it came to internal and emotional, it's like no, when I'm gonna deal with this, wash this out. So yeah, that's something I think about quite a bit, and especially as I work with a lot of narcissist men that aren't showing up for the kids or fighting with their baby mamas. And yeah, just, it brings back a flood of memories. And it's trying to get them to understand that they're only hurting the children at the end of the day. And they may not realize it now, but as they become older and the kids become resentful and they build that hatred, it's going to show up. It's going to show up 10 times over, 10x. So I have these conversations all the time. And it's unfortunate because a lot of masculine men that still live in their ego, um, it's not even traditional. They're just fucking nuts, like narcissists to the extreme. And then I mean that, I don't even mean that lightheartedly because they're just fucking mean. And I remember being in that space. So it's sad to watch a replay from the outside, now looking in. Yeah, it's pretty sad.
I mean, now I do understand giving you grace for you were a product of what you were taught. And it is very common, unless you have the education or you want to choose differently, that you parent the way that you were parented or in the way that you think that you need to, or what you were lacking. Sometimes you tend to go to the extreme. Um, but I think that there's a healthy balance that can be achieved between still being a traditional parent, because there are a lot of elements that I do like and I agree with traditional parenting, because it instills that toughness and it instills that resilience. But I also think that it shouldn't be so extreme, kind of like how I grew up, so restrictive, so extreme, so closed off when it comes to emotions and feelings, um, that it just goes too far. I think that there needs to be a balance between you're creating a safe space for open conversations, to know that your kids can come to you.
I know one of the things that, as I've gone through this growth over the last, couple of years and started to reflect on my decisions, the one thing that I do stand steady on is the fact that when it comes to bullying, I'm just non-negotiable when it comes to bullying. I still, even to this day, even no matter how many journeys I've done and how, much I've tapped in my feminine, I just have no tolerance for bullying. And I know one of the things that, I did back then is if somebody ever bullies you, you better fight them. Like you better nip that in the bud because you're never going to get in trouble at home. You're going to get in trouble if you come home and I found out you didn't do anything about it or you lost the fight. Then we're going to fight. And I don't know if you remember those times, but I was always against anti-bullying and would be the first one to go in there, and regardless of what the school said, because I know there were instances where bullying happened. The few that I became aware of, because I know I was just such a loose cannon that a lot wasn't shared with me because, yeah, afraid of what I would do. I remember somebody bullied you when we lived up in Victorville, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I went and started banging on the parents' door and was going to fight the dad and all this chaos that happened. Um, but that's just the dad that I was. Like, I was going to protect you. Nobody was going to bully my girls. Now I'm going to bully you because I didn't know any better. But exterior, that wasn't going to happen. And so I don't know if you remember that.
I do. I was dealing with a lot of girl drama at that time. Yep.
So, you know, I stand um, right here and I say that if your kids are being bullied, you need to teach them to defend themselves. You need to teach them to defend themselves and to shut it down. Because what happens is, if you don't shut the bullying down early enough, and then a lot of times it starts in elementary school. And then what happens is it passes on to junior high school. And then from junior high school, it passes on to high school. And your kids will have a miserable elementary, junior high school, and high school experience if you don't nip the bullying in the butt. And unfortunately, a lot of times the schools are so quick to dismiss it. They're quick to dismiss it because, um, number one, they don't really want to get involved because now you're going to have parents from both sides and it just becomes too much of an issue. So they try to downplay it. And, but I am an advocate that although I don't condone violence, I'm always the first one that if somebody bullies you and you've told them to stop and they're not, then you need to take action and nip it in the bud. And if that means using your hands and feet to do it, then so be it. You would have never got in trouble in the house. And I think you knew that going
Oh,
in.
I remembered that. I remembered that that was something from elementary school that was told to me, that if there's a bully or if, somebody hits me, but it was, don't be the first person to, like, don't go bullying other people and don't be the first person to basically throw the punch because, um, then it was like, don't be the antagonist of the situation. But if somebody touches you, if they hit you, if they push you, you better push them back. And you're not going to get in trouble for defending yourself, but you need to do something about it. Otherwise, then that's when it's going to be a problem.
Well, I'm changing my perspective on that now. So now I think if somebody's bullying you, don't wait for the first punch. If you told them to stop, you throw the first punch
What?
and you
Okay.
never get
Well,
in trouble.
well,
No, because yeah,
no, I've heard this thing. Um, Basically, it's like a few different steps. I hope that I don't mess it up. But basically, you ask them to stop, and then you tell them to stop, and then if they still don't stop, that's when, right? So when it comes down to it, you've asked, you've used your voice, you've told them you need to stop, and then the third thing is that I'm guessing that's when situations get handled. That's the way to do it because when you get in trouble or when it comes down to it, it's like, well, I asked them, I told them, and they still didn't stop. So then at that point, what do you want me to do if they're still bullying me? And those are words that I didn't have back then because it was so just, they push you, you do this. Something happens, you do that.
yeah, forget all that. You tell them to stop. They don't, punch them in the nose as hard as you can. And then at that point, they're either going to stop or you're going to have a good fight and you're never going to get in trouble in the Rodarte house.
What if they're not pushing you though? Or is this just in terms of like they're pushing you or something? Or is this in terms of like they're teasing or they're
No, it's just nip it in the bud. You just got to nip it in the bud. Once you just punch one, then the rest are going to see that you're not messing around anymore. I don't advocate violence, but at the same time, I've seen so many parents that have come to me because their kids being bullied, and it's a big problem. There's a lot of kids that have committed suicide off of bullying. And then not only traditional bullying, but now with social media. And we're not even going to talk about um, when your sisters were in school over at in at the high school in the Inland Empire. And there was a time where between when school started and like a 3-week period, there were like 4 or 5 suicides at their high school, like one after another. And that was unfortunate. And it was bullying and depression. And it's an epidemic that has to be addressed, even though it's controversial. And there is that gray area because there's school and then there's outside of school, but it has to be addressed. Bullying needs to, and sometimes the schools don't have the capabilities to stop it. You know, they can say, okay, we're going to switch classrooms and put you guys out in different, classes or just stay away from each other. But the reality is kids are cruel. Kids are
Kids are
cruel.
mean. Kids are mean these days. Not even when I was in school, and I met some bullies, but kids are mean, and I don't know what is going on.
No, it's, so parents, it's important to have conversations with your kids to make sure that they're not going to be, because a lot of kids are bullied and don't tell their parents because they're afraid their parents are going to go to school and make things worse for them. So I guess my question is, how do you find that fine balance if your child's being bullied and you think they're being bullied, but they're not wanting to say anything? Where's that fine line?
I think this is where traditional parent meets the modern parent. So with the traditional parent, right, it's more authoritative or authoritarian. Um, and then with the modern parent, it's more they want to, I see like the soft parenting and the trying to heal and everything, and I think that that's great. But you need to be mindful about what you're teaching your kids in what way. Are you teaching them resilience, or are you teaching them to be a little bit too soft? Or now we're getting too far away from instilling that strongness, that strong will, that using your voice. I think the very first thing that it's going to take is creating that safe space. And I'm not talking about when they're in high school, when they're in middle school. This is way before they even get there. It's creating a safe space where they can openly talk, where they can provide those emotions. So if you're not there yet and they're in elementary school, or before they even get to elementary school, now is the perfect time to start building up their confidence, to help them start working on their inner voice and their inner self of how they see themselves. And there are plenty of tools out there, and we can definitely provide those as well. But there's a lot of content, there's a lot of stuff out there on how to do that. You just have to go looking for it. And then from there, once you've established a safe space, then you can just start getting your kids into the habit of talking about their days. But don't just ask them, how's their day going? Talk about things like, did you see something? Did you see somebody getting bullied today? Was there anything that made you uncomfortable about today? Is there something that you would have liked to change in your day today? Things like that as they get older, so that you can start asking some questions that are not just going to give you one-worded answers. Oh, it was fine. It was okay. Um, you need to be aware that sometimes asking, how's your day? How was school? That's not going to give you the investigation that you need to find out exactly what's going on with your child. But you have to establish that relationship that there's not going to be any judgment, and there's not even going to be any direct action or consequences until things are talked out. Now, if this has already been taken too far to the point where now this is really affecting them, and this is like your child is mentally in danger, physically in danger, then absolutely you need to step up and you need to get involved as soon as possible. But even if they're already in middle school or high school, you have to start having conversations. And you don't just ask them things. You don't just investigate with them. You share your own stories, because the key in that is they have to be able to relate to you. Because I'll tell you from experience, you as a teenager, as a child, you feel like you are the only one going through this, that these problems are so big and my parents just couldn't possibly understand what I'm going through because I'm here going through it. And with social media, yes, it can be overwhelming because bullies no longer stay at school. They can follow you home. And that's something that is something that I didn't have to deal with as much, although there were some things. But yeah, it can be a lot. But it's going to take you as a parent to start sharing those stories, to start sharing, tell them, did you ever get bullied? even tell them if you bullied a kid and how you feel about that. I mean, your empathy, your remorse, why you bullied them, what's going on, and where are you now, and why do you feel bad about that? Or when you were bullied, what did you feel like? What did you go through? Did you feel like you couldn't go to your parents? Share that with them, and then let them know that that's not the way that you want your relationship to be with your child. And also take away the fear of them coming to you by letting them know that you're not just going to take immediate action if you do not feel that they're in immediate danger, right? Because that comes with boundaries. Um, and let them know there's going to be a conversation and they have a safe place to talk to you.
Or you can just punch him in the nose and avoid all the
Oh,
hoopla.
This episode is sponsored by Aloha Imports, the sprays that make your worst smelling secrets disappear. Listen, I love people, but I don't love their shoes or their oops, I ate a burrito bathroom breaks. And I really don't love pretending I don't smell it. That's why I keep Aloha Imports products in the house, in my car, honestly, probably in every bag I own. They've got Sweet Feet for foot funk, Shoe Fly for that one pesky fly, Smoke Off for smoke clouds that linger like your last situationship, and Crapper Zapper for the bathroom situation. You know the one. Aloha Imports doesn't cover it up with flowers and lies. They end it, silently, like a tropical ninja with a vendetta. So if you live with roommates, pets, or anyone who eats food and then, processes that food, you need this. Go to alohaimports.com, stock up, and enjoy living in a house that doesn't smell like a regret.
So,
or you can take
I'm sure. So I'm sure you know this, but I'm gonna let a cat out the bag. You went through a lot in elementary, junior high school. When you got to high school, I really got very protective. There was a group of neighborhood boys that I paid to watch over you, right? In high
Yeah.
school, they used to give me updates.
I know that there was one specifically, which she was really annoying.
There were three.
What? Okay. One of them was like, we grew up together, right? So he was like an older brother to me. And I do remember that when I started dating, like my high school boyfriend, he had seen me walking with them and he just like, he stopped and he called me over. He's like, come here. And I'm like, what's up? And I'm like, and he's looking at him and he's like, who are you with? And I'm like, leave me alone. Like my dad, does your dad know about? Yes, my dad knows. Can you leave me alone? I'm like, dang. Like who are you? So I didn't know that there was more, but I figured that there was one and I pretty much knew like he probably he would go and tell you.
Yeah. I used to get updates, weekly updates, sometimes daily.
Oh, that's interesting. What the heck?
But I kind of knew you knew about one, but you didn't know about the other two. Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to have some conversations off camera because that is something that I'm learning for the very first time.
Wow. Well, like I said, see, now you're old enough. Now that you're going to be 30, we can unravel some of
Oh,
these
okay, we
things.
don't need to out my age.
It's funny because as we kind of start to segue, I started thinking about your first official boyfriend in high school.
Oh
And I
gosh.
remember the first time I met him,
Oh
but I
gosh.
don't remember if you remember what I put him through.
Yeah, how can I forget? Trauma memory like instilled.
So do you want to share with the audience um, how he showed up and how I presented myself and then what I made him do to make sure that he was going to be there to protect you? Because I remember this very clearly. It's actually kind of humorous.
I don't really get the point of that because like we were in high school, but yeah, sure. You put him through like a series of tests. So the first test
Oh, no,
was
but
like,
before that, he shows up and I had my gun collection out.
oh yeah, and then you were asking my mom where your guns were. But this was the beginning. Like when he came up and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then it was an awkward sit down with like basically the interview portion which was asking him even though we were freshmen, asking him about what he wanted to do after high school and basically what his goals were even though we were just newly freshmen and we're barely trying to figure out high school. But you wanted to get a sense of, I guess, who he was, I don't know. And then after that came like a series of tests. So I remember one
Wait,
being
wait, 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 wait. The first time I met him, his parents came over.
no, they dropped him off.
Okay, what was the time where his parents came over? And then in front of them, I said, if you ever stalk my daughter or do anything to hurt her, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And the dad just kind of looked like, what the hell?
I don't remember. There
Okay,
probably
so
was a time at some point throughout.
I was very vocal about making sure that he knew that um, there was going to be no physical hands-on activity as far as, um, possessiveness and so forth. And I made it very clear in front of his parents that I would not tolerate it and I would take action physically on him. And I remember the mom and dad just kind of stood there and your mom was like, oh my gosh. But I remember the dad just kind of like, what the heck? So yeah, maybe you weren't in the room, but yeah, real conversation that really happened. So maybe that's why they never came to our family parties.
That probably was it.
But when he did come over, I put him through a series. At first, I sat him down and had to talk. And then I put him through a series of tests. I made him run. We did, I believe it was like a 2-mile run.
My God.
We did, I made him shoot a BB gun to see if he knew how to shoot. Did I spar with him? Did I box with him?
No.
No, what else did I know it was a series of activities.
Well,
And
I know one of them was like, I think one of them we did like an activity together. That might have been the original reason why he came over, or was like some activity together. I don't know. It might have been seeing how we work together. I don't know. It was
yeah, it
really
was like 3 or 4 physical activities that I made him do just to see if he had the stamina and the agility to be able to stand up and protect you. So yeah, it was pretty entertaining now that I think about it.
I don't think that was entertaining. I think that was traumatic for me.
As we kind of segue, I do want to talk about something that came up a little while ago, and that's participation trophies. And I've always been bothered by this. For those of you that don't know, participation trophies are awards that are given to all the participants, everybody that participated in the sport. Um, it doesn't matter whether they win or lose. It's to recognize the effort and commitment and encouraging, continued participation and to build self-esteem. And it fosters sports and activities. What a crock of bullshit. I just think that participation trophies have really diluted children nowadays into, not setting them up for success in life, that there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers, and it's okay to lose. But when we're so quick to give out these participation trophies, um, I think it just creates a culture of entitled kids that, we're rewarding them for um, mediocre performance, if that makes sense. It's almost like a false sense of entitlement that the kids expect rewards just because they showed up, even if they didn't win. And I just wanted to get your take on that because I just think that it diminishes the motivation and it hinders not only their development, but even the realistic expectations of winning and losing. A lot of, some critics even say that it contributes to narcissism and laziness because it's praising their minimal effort. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on participation trophies because I've always been bothered by that. And I've always thought that that's setting up the kids for just a struggle as they navigate through this journey of life.
So I'm with you on that. I do not like participation trophies. I think the problem is that there is not enough parents that are teaching their children the benefits of losing and how to deal with failure. I think there's more emphasis on the success. However, it's over time, we've moved away from that with the participation trophies and the effort trophies and everything. Um, you can praise them for their effort. You can, praise them for their commitment. But at the end of the day, like you said, there are winners and there are losers. And that's just what it is to be in the real world. So when you start off giving them participation trophies, I can see how that does contribute to entitlement, because now they do feel like they don't need to put in as much effort. But I think the real problem behind that is not the participation trophy per se, but I think that that's just a symbol of parents are not teaching their kids, and they're not focusing on the topic of failure as much as they should be, because failure is the real topic here, and teaching them that it is okay to lose. And what do you do when you fail? You get back up. And also, it's okay to not be good at that one thing or those other things, because you'll be really good at something else. I think there's more guidance that needs to be needed in terms of, if you're not good at this, then great, try something else. But don't just stop when you fail. You keep trying and you keep trying. Oh, lost my train of thought.
Let me just chime in for a minute, because I stumbled onto something a couple of years ago that I wish I would have implemented um, with you earlier. I know I started to with um, your sisters, your younger sisters, towards the end of their high school career, but I wish I would have learned this earlier. And this was where a father, when he would pick up his daughter from school, he would say, "Okay, so tell me how you failed today. Tell me 3 things you failed at." And so what he did was, over the course of junior high school and high school, he got her used to um, not only celebrating her accomplishments, but also celebrating the failures. And what that did was that allowed her to basically always try new things and never be afraid of failing, because she got so comfortable with it. And what a powerful um, tool to be able to utilize to just teach your kids that it's okay to fail and celebrate it. Oh my God, you failed at this today? Hey, that's good. You know what? You're going to fail. And then have that conversation around it. But what he did was he prepared his daughter for failure, so that as she transitioned from high school into college and into the world, the workforce, she was never afraid to try new things, because failing was just a part of the process. And she was so used to talking about it that it didn't hinder her growth. And I just think that's such a powerful tool. Matter of fact, we're gonna create a PDF on that too, on celebrating not only the wins, but celebrating the losses. Because imagine a child that is now prepared that it's okay to fail. How limitless are they going to be? How powerful will they be to be able to just take risk and not care whether they succeed or fail, because they know that eventually it'll pay off.
I think that's awesome. That's something that I would want to instill with my kids. Um, you need to fall in love with failure, because that's what life is. It's a series of failures until you get to where you find your success. And it's not about the success, it's about the journey of getting there. And it's about acknowledging your failures, getting there. What did you learn?
It's funny because I'll have these conversations with people, and they'll say, "Man, you're so blessed. You've accomplished so much in life, and you've done this and you've done that." And I just did a post over the weekend, and it's a podcast that I was on, and the title of the podcast was "From Gang Member to Mayor," and then the podcast was a big part of rewriting my story. So I posted something, basically saying, "If I can do this, you can too. How will you rewrite your story?" And the reason I bring that up is because people see the wins, but they don't see all the failures. They don't see the actually, it's not even thousands of failures that I went through life, not only in business, but with family, with parenting, with relationships, with you name it. I've failed and failed, but I failed so much that I've gotten so comfortable with dusting myself up and getting up and trying it again. And you're right. We do have to teach our kids that it's okay to fail, because from that comes resilience. From that comes the ability to do anything you want to do. And that was a powerful post because I forgot that that podcast was out there and I stumbled on it and I started listening to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have accomplished a lot, but I've accomplished it because I've never been afraid of failing. Well, there was a point where I was, but I had to get over it. So I just think that that's a powerful tool to be able to um, not only to educate your children on, but something for you to follow, for each individual person to follow. Fail as many times as you need to in order to get to where you want to be. Because if it was that easy to get to that place you wanted to be, everybody would do it. Everybody would do it. Everybody would win. And not everybody can win. Only the ones that truly want it, the ones that are truly hungry and willing to put in the work and the grind, they're the ones that are going to succeed. So fail, 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 and fail. And eventually you'll get the win.
Sorry, I didn't have anything else. I didn't
Well,
know
that's all I had to say on that.
how to lead away from that. We'll edit this.
Well, no, we're not editing shit. So what I do want to close out, I want to close out with a funny story. So, this has been a very good. Oh, before I forget, as you watch the podcast or you watch the clips and there's topics you want us to talk about, go ahead and DM us. DM either me or Alyssa, message us, and we'd be happy to share our perspective. Not saying it's a correct perspective, but it's just our perspective of our journey through how we've showed up as a father and then as a daughter. So yes, a lot of our topics that are coming out right now are coming from messages or conversations that are being had with clients. So, okay, enough of that. I want to end with a funny story. And I think I've shared this before, but maybe we have, maybe we haven't. But when I was born, my mother gifted me a teddy bear. And his name is Poopy.
I know where this is going.
And Poopy showed up in my first or second week of being born. And so Poopy has been with me all my life. Up until, I want to say around COVID time, he disappeared. And I was very attached to that doll, even as an adult. And because my family and my girls knew I was attached, he was always the victim of a lot of pranks and a lot of hostile takeovers. And, and I remember a funny story. We're talking about this off camera just a couple of days ago. Is I remember one time, so I need to find him because either he's still being held ransom or I think he got put away because I was tired of you guys kidnapping him. Like they were literally
Not by
kidnapping
me. Not by me. I didn't take
he
him.
would show up like hanging from, stealing vans and out the window. And they would dress him up like a little girl, like all kinds of just, unfortunate things.
Hmm.
But I remember this story where I don't remember what you guys did. Well, I'll let you share the story because
Okay. I already know what story you're going to share. And for the record, I do not have Poopy. But I would have loved to have Poopy and I guess, as you said, kidnap him and just take a video of him driving in the car with me. But I would have been nice now. But so the story that you're referring to is, yes, he was the victim of a lot of our pranks because we knew that we could get a rise out of you. We knew that if we did something to this doll, that we could get Dad's reaction. It would be really funny. So one of the things that I did is I decided, for whatever reason, that I was going to go outside in the backyard and I was going to use the deck that we had built on our hill and hang him from there. So that's what I did. I hung him from his foot from the deck. To which then you seen it and freaked out. And that
I got angry.
ended and that went like 0 to 100 real fast because all I remember is that my shit was getting thrown. I'm sorry, but like my stuff was getting thrown out of my second story bedroom
No,
window.
your shit got
Like,
thrown
my
out the window.
clothes
So you
was
were on the
getting
second
thrown
story.
out of- and then my mattress ended up outside. Like you drug down my mattress from my room and put it outside in the front lawn.
And all your clothes went out and all your makeup. Everything was just getting thrown out the second story window because I was that upset. It wasn't even a joke at that point. I
It
was
was it
truly
was
upset.
it was a prank.
Yeah,
It
but
was a prank that went wrong. Like, you took it, like, extremely far. That was another negative thing from your parenting, is being too attached to the damn doll.
well, I'm not attached anymore.
Well, you can't because he's not around. But I do feel bad
Well,
about
that's true.
because each of us, me and my sisters, we all were also attached to him because we're used to him being around. And and I feel like I'm not sure if I'm the one that played more pranks with him or not. Um, but we all did have our own time growing up, spending with the teddy bear, and we had pictures, and we'd have it around. But then you would always end up back with it, and then once we started, grabbing and doing pranks with it, then you would start putting them away. But I can tell you, I do feel bad this day because connecting with my inner child and really tuning into my spirituality with me, it does make me feel bad that you can't find it because I want that for you. But as I've told you, I think that he served his purpose for you. And I hope that he is somewhere where he can be found. But if not, then at least you have your fond memories and funny memories with him. Some of them not so funny, but for me,
Yeah, no, I need to find him. I need to open up all, through the moves, through COVID and stuff. I think he got packed away because I would literally hide him because I knew that he was going to get kidnapped. I remember coming home and there were ransom notes and so forth. So yeah, we had a lot of fun with him. He was a part of the family. He was a son that I never had. Oh,
yeah,
somebody said
as you referred to him that way, he was our brother.
he was your brother, your big brother.
Okay.
So, when I graduated from the police academy, I remember your grandma, my mom, they went and got him a custom LAPD uniform and they decked him out with
Us.
a hat and his police uniform and they presented him to him. So that's how um significant Poopy was in our family, is that everybody recognized him as as like another sibling.
I mean, you did.
No, we all did.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I hope you do find him. I mean, that's something that you have a lot of fond memories and you're connected with. I hope you do. If he's still being ransomed, I don't know. But from what I've heard, nobody has him, which concerned me when I found out because then you didn't have him, nobody had him, and I don't know. Maybe he's hiding.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put it out there. If somebody has them and been playing this sick prank for the last couple of years, I'm gonna give $1,000 to just return them. $1,000 cash, no questions asked. Just have them show up in the mailbox or have them show up at the front door, and I will give $1,000 because I don't know. I think that he's still being held hostage.
Are you serious? Hold on. I'm
You
gonna
heard
go
it here
search
first.
every family unit storage tote box right now. How about for the finder?
What's that? I just want him
No,
back.
don't worry about it. I'm gonna start a search.
I just want him back. So you know what? Um, this has been a powerful episode because we talked on a couple things that were really issues that have been showing up. Uh, the whole role of the trad dad, the traditional dad, and how a lot of parents, not especially fathers, not showing up as traditional dads, how the discipline is getting lost with their kids. And then we talked on the topic of bullying, something that just it continues to really hit at me because I know I was a victim of bullying for a short period of time in eighth grade, and then watching you guys go through it, and then just talking about a little bit about relationships and just you know, any closing thoughts as we start to wrap up this episode of Fatherhood Voices.
I would say the thing that I will leave you with is it has a similar theme as the last podcast that we have. Talk to your children. Create a space, a non-judgmental space. And
Wait a minute, 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 wait a minute. Before we go there, I have to interrupt you because I just thought of something. And you're going to see the video drop tomorrow. You're probably not going to be happy,
oh
but
gosh.
I'm just going to forewarn you. You're going to see a video drop. You did a TikTok like 2 years ago,
Oh gosh.
and I just have to stumble on it.
Oh gosh, I know which
Um,
one it is because I just seen the activity and I said, this mother's gonna do something with this video. I
well,
already know.
I did. So you posted something 2 years ago about, did your dad ever play Barbies with you and have them fight, create, um, relationship issues? And I remember when you guys were small, there were times when I was present and I would show up and play Barbies. Yes, I would play Barbies with my daughters. But my way of playing Barbies was very different from the traditional way of playing Barbies. My Barbies always got into fights and had disagreements, and the Ken and Skippy and whatever Chad and yeah, they were boxing Barbie. And so I remember what did you post? So you've seen the activity today.
Yes, I did, and I knew right away. I said, "Oh man, what is he gonna do with this one?" Because you just love to grab my content and just take it. That's fine. That was the video. It was something about. So, did anyone else's dad ever play Barbies with them growing up and create conflict, and then they end up fighting? It was something like that because that is an actual experience. And then I would tell you, Dad, you're not doing it right. You're not playing right, and I would get upset because you were always creating conflict.
Well, and in my defense, I was preparing you for the real world on how to deal with situations that would come up.
What?
So I figured show conflict so you were exposed to
I
it
was
at an
5
early age.
or 6
But
when
then you knew if this showed up, you knew how to handle it.
that's not what was
And that
happening.
was
Hold
my
on.
way of thinking.
No, let's break this down. Let's just be conscientious about when we're playing Barbies or with any type of, toys that you're playing with. Maybe when you start creating conflict, you're teaching your young impressionable child that conflict is okay or that's how you can play or something. I don't think that that's really teaching what you thought it was, Dad. I don't see that. But you didn't explain. We played, and then I would get upset, and I'd be like, "Dad, you're not playing right." And then I'd take your Barbies away from you, and then you're wondering why my aggressive genes got triggered.
It's funny because with Bella, um, the little people have conflict, and she
Oh my
laughs,
gosh,
and
no,
it's
you
it's
don't.
so. And Bella's only 2.5 years old,
Oh
and
my
even
gosh.
she likes creating conflict because I'm teaching her about how to maneuver when she goes into preschool and she's on the playground, how to maneuver through
Oh my
conflict
gosh,
with
you
little
cannot
people.
teach my niece that. And
I
what's gonna happen when she goes to school? She starts creating conflict and like bullying the other kids, or they're told.
She's gonna be ready.
Oh my
She's
gosh,
gonna
I
be ready
can't.
for anything that unravels. But when she gets Barbies, then we're gonna have the Barbie conflict, so she can
Okay,
get
this
prepared.
is this is why I get hit sometimes. This makes sense now. Why sometimes I get hit with toys, or she thinks it's funny to throw them, or now I'm starting to notice this. I don't condone this part of it. I don't condone this part without the conversation. No, I don't. This is not. That's not what you should be doing.
Okay, well, I'll have to relook at this whole um playful nature with the little people and then the Barbies that she does have. So
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Let's not. I mean, being interactive and sometimes going like whatever is happening, but the conflict. Let's keep that to a minimal. Oh, also, is this the reason why she was brushing my hair? This is totally random, but I just want to know, funny story. I want to know if this is connected of why she was randomly brushing my hair with her little play brush and then got one of those, I don't know what the name of this kitchen tool is, but it's like for the meat, basically, like when you hammer the meat, but it's the version for a kid's kitchen. And then she started hitting me on the head with it randomly. Like, somebody explain that to me because I don't think that she was taught that. I think that she just randomly decided, I'm brushing your hair and now I got to pound your head.
well, wait a minute. Somebody
I'm
explain to
just
me
curious where did that
why.
logic come from? I mean, kids are kids, but
Wait a minute. Somebody explain to me why I came over the other day to do a play date with her, and she was putting her Barbies and little people inside her kitchen microwave and pushing the buttons. So explain that one to me because I didn't teach her that.
she doesn't understand. She just sees lights and sounds.
Wow. Well, thank you for joining us for another. Okay, so now you can go ahead and close out the episode.
Oh, so basically, takeaway here is talk to your kids. Create that safe space with them. Don't wait. And even if they're already in middle school, high school, it's not too late. It's never too late to start asking the questions. And the number one thing too is, as parents, you need to relate to your children. You need to share stories with them about the things you went through, how you felt, and what you saw your friends or other family members going through, so that they don't feel like they are the only ones that are going through it. The biggest thing is take away the isolation from them and take away the feeling like they are the only ones that are going through that specific situation.
Thank you for that. And with that, this is a wrap of episode 58 of Fatherhood Voices. And stay tuned next week for next week's episode, which we're not even going to talk about what it's about because always a change in scheduling and so forth. But yeah, thank you for joining us and tuning in. And we hope you received value from this episode of Fatherhood Voices.